Alright, I'm going to start by showing you how I build my applique units using parchment paper or an applique pressing sheet. The applique pressing sheets are pretty nice. They're pretty heavy duty and they're translucent enough where you can see the drawn design behind them. Today I'm going to use the parchment paper from Reynolds. You might have some in your kitchen. So the idea is you can partially fuse elements of your snowmen and then build them so that when you go to put them on your background, they're already pretty much fused together. So I'm going to do the scarf here, and I'm just going to lay it on top of my pattern, and then I really am just fusing right where they overlap. And the one thing you need to be sure to do is let this cool enough so that when you peel it off, it doesn't leave any of your fusible behind on the parchment or the pressing sheet. So this is a little bit warm here. So one of the other things that I did ahead of time here is I took the snowman body and the head and I fused it where they overlap. And so as soon as my scarf is a little bit cooler, take that off. I think that's okay now. So I can peel that off. Alright, so we're going to put the snowman shapes on top of the pattern, and now I can just lay this, the scarf, where it belongs. And I want to make sure I didn't do this when I made the pattern or the quilt that's on the cover. I didn't make sure that my scarf pieces were far enough off to the side to let me put buttons on the snowman. So my snowman on my quilt do not have buttons. But I am going to make sure that the scarf is out of the way, and then I'm just going to lightly mark where the buttons and the eyes are going to go, just with a pencil. And you could use a friction marker too if you wanted to. So I'm going to press this down and fuse it to the snowman. And then I'm going to take the pattern for the snowman that has the hat on it, lay that on top. Now I'm going to take my hat, which is in my handy paper plate that I had all of my parts in for snowman number 1, and I'm going to put that on the snowman, get that kind of right where I want it. And you can put the hats on any way you would like. This is just a guide. And then we'll get the brim. I just want to make sure that the brim covers the snowman's head because it's kind of poking out. So I think that looks good. And even though it's not quite, it's tilted a little bit more than the pattern, I'm just going to commit here. And you really just want to make sure the areas that are fabric to fabric are fused. So now my snowman is ready. I'm going to let that cool, ready to put on the background. And you want to be sure that you decide which is fabric 1 and which is fabric 2, because depending on the snowman, the blocks are rotated from one direction to the next. So for me, this is fabric number 1, fabric number 2. Now to get the snowman centered on the block, I like to finger press the bottom body of the snowman, whatever you want to call it, and then that gives me a place to align him on the seam line. Now the snowman, depending on the height of their hats, will vary in exactly where they are centered. So I'm just going to measure real quick to see if I should be pretty much right on here. So that's pretty good. Then I've got just over 2 1/4 2. Nope, I can move him down. So here it's 2, here it's inch and 7/8, and down here it's about 2 inches. So I am going to commit. I'm going to fuse him to the background. And I do wait until I have all of the snowman done so that I can get my machine set up, get my thread, my tension, my needle just right, and then I do all of the snowman at one time, and I do the blanket stitch around all of the elements, or you could do a small zigzag too if you wanted to. Now, the buttons, those need to wait until after your quilt is quilted, especially if you're taking it to a long arm, a professional long arm quilter. And it isn't really that difficult to sew those buttons on after you get the quilt back at all. So be sure to watch the video on the pieced block, the flying geese block, because we get 2 for each part of this snowman. Frosty Friends Sew Along. Thanks for watching.